The project title was Form a Consortium for Stage 0 Cancer Intervention with Enhanced Cancer Surveillance and New Treatment Modalities. We felt that it is important to encourage development of stage 0 cancer interventions, assuming that there is a test for detecting it at stage 0, and what are the treatment protocols that are actually possible. The reality is that today there is no intervention possible because it is not actually recognized as a disease. We actually know of cancer patients that are cancer survivors where certain mutations have already happened, but the oncologist cannot intervene because there's no tumor present in the body, right? And our view was that until you develop certain solutions, you're never going to be able to convince regulatory bodies that there is value for that patient to be able to detect the cancer so early. Now, our view of why there are no solutions is because there is no detection methodology today, right? And as we talked about, we believe that we've got a method of being able to detect the disease at stage 0. The questions that arise, however, is it in the person's, is it in the patient's, this has become very dark. How does it work? Oops, sorry. Is it in the patient's, interest to know? I got it. Is it in the patient's interest to know that they are at stage 0, right? And there are ethical considerations around this, right? Because what you will always hear from regulatory bodies will be that you're causing mental anguish to the person. The counter argument to that is that don't you cause them mental anguish when you tell them that you've got stage 2 or stage 3 cancer, right? I, for one, would love to know at stage 0. Right. Now, for some, but there is an argument against this, because if you've read Siddharth Mukherjee's work, he talks about how for early cancers it makes sense to intervene at an early stage, but for late cancers it does not make sense. So there's an argument out there for for prostate cancer, for many types of breast cancer, right? You shouldn't intervene early. Right. So there is an ethical consideration about whether it's in the patient's interest to know. Right. Our argument, however, was that if there is preventative measures that are allowed for cardiovascular, diabetes, well, why isn't there one for cancer as well? Right. Especially if there is methods to actually be able to detect it early. What are the constraints around this? Well, till we do the longitudinal studies, this is just a claim, right? Even from a business perspective, our investors would first want us to focus on cancer present and cancer absent as the markers that we test for, right? Rather than imminent cancer, even though we understand that that's actually the best time to detect cancer. Right? A proposition that we'll actually put to you is that actually cancer is a weak disease. Right? The tragedy is that we wait for it to become for the tumor to form, and once the tumor form, you're actually dealing with a disease that actually the cells just proliferate very, very quickly, right? So even at at stage 0, right? At stage 1, you're dealing with a disease that is actually growing quite quickly. It just looks better than stage 3 or stage 4, because at stage 3 and stage 4, it is growing still. It's a worse situation. So it's like telling a person who's in a mess that, hey,
warning.
Yeah. So the question here was, the risks from our perspective were that, well, we first need to validate what this test is, what we are claiming is proven in a Western study, and that is exactly what we are working on. There are ethical constraints around letting a patient know that they are at stage 0, especially if there's no solution for them at this particular point in time. There are but our view is that you will actually develop preventative solutions only when you recognize the disease at that particular stage. How much will it cost? Well, there's no absolute number at this point in time, but it is definitely going to cost the system and that person a lot less than a late stage disease. How long will it take to prove? Well, longitudinal studies can take time. Like I said, the first step would be validating that stage 0 actually, which means that we'll have to actually detect people at stage 0 and follow them and see that they actually do get cancer before we can actually claim that as a valid stage.
Awesome. We have 2 minutes for questions. You almost did your hand up.
Yeah, go for it. So, any idea what the intervention look like?
Sorry, say again?
Any idea what the intervention look like?
Look, to be honest, the reason for our breakthrough is that we have our view, our theory on how cancer is originating. And we believe that it's a stem cell disease more than a mutation-based disease, right? So we have our own theories around how you can intervene, because you need to stop the epigenetic changes, right, of these stem cells. But more importantly, we can also, because we can tell you which organ is at risk, right? If you understand the soil and seed approach, the reality is that we can intervene in that organ as well. So those are the 2 areas that we think we would have to work on to come up with solutions.
So we've all come together to try to discuss it, but the method is secret. And
Actually, it's not. It's
and then what we would do about it is unknown.
No, not at all. It's in the public domain.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
we've
because before
got
I thought
2
you were
papers.
saying that I can't tell you what we're actually doing.
No, there are 2 papers
Okay.
published. We haven't told you each and every marker, but the reality is that we've obviously, that's what we did 4 weeks back. It's in Stem Cell Review. I put up that paper details.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, awesome.
I just want to add one other point of value to the tech. I came to the group a little late, and as a skeptic, I don't actually believe in the whole cancer stem cell thing. I think it is mutational. But if you can detect something at stage 0, first of all, is stage 0 even a thing? That remains to be proven. But if it is a real thing and it does lead to cancer, then one of the biggest values is if people know that they're on a track to develop, for instance, prostate cancer, they will do more intensive surveillance of that part of the body, and they're at greater likelihood of catching it in stage 1. I think that's a key advantage if it remains proven that stage 0 is really a thing.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.